It was supposed to be a celebration. The King of France, his queen, their court, all gathered in splendor. But that night, a single sip would change history. Within days, King Henry II was dead, and whispers began to spread. Poison. All eyes turned to one woman, Catherine de Medici, the Italian queen who ruled the French court from the shadows. To some, she was a mother protecting her sons. To others, the Black Queen who poisoned her enemies with a smile. But was she really the monster history made her out to be? Or was she the perfect scapegoat in a kingdom already poisoned by power, greed, and betrayal? Tonight, we uncover the deadly secrets of Catherine de Medici and decide whether France's most feared queen was a killer or a survivor. By the time she was 40, Catherine's name already haunted Europe. Ambassadors described her as charming one minute, terrifying the next. She could speak 5 languages fluently, yet rarely raised her voice. They said she could read people's futures through the stars and their deaths through their eyes, that she moved pawns across France the way a gambler moves coins, quiet, calculated, and without remorse. To her allies, she was brilliant. To her enemies, she was cursed. But Catherine wasn't born into the shadows of the French court. She was forged there through tragedy, exile, humiliation, and a lifetime of betrayal. To understand the Queen, you have to go back to where it all began, not in a palace, but in a crumbling city, at the heart of chaos itself. Catherine de Medici was born in Florence in 1519, a time when Italy wasn't a country, but a battlefield divided by kingdoms, popes, and empires. Her family, the Medici, were among the most powerful bankers in Europe. They financed kings, built cathedrals, and shaped the Renaissance itself. But power breeds enemies, and before Catherine could even walk, both her parents were dead. Her mother from fever, her father from disease. She was left an orphan and a prize. Different factions fought over her guardianship, not out of love, but for control of her inheritance. One side wanted her raised as a nun, hidden away in a convent. The other wanted to use her as a pawn in their political games. When enemies of the Medici rose up, the child became their target. At just 10 years old, she was trapped in a convent as rebels stormed Florence. For weeks, the city burned, windows shattered, bells screamed. The young Catherine hid behind cold stone walls as soldiers searched for her. She watched one of the nuns drag her into the cellar and whisper, "Be quiet, child. Power makes men monsters." And maybe that was the moment it clicked, that survival would never come from strength, but from silence, observation, and patience. While other children learned to play, Catherine learned to listen. She learned to memorize faces, voices, secrets, because one day she'd need them. When the rebellion ended, the girl who should have been a casualty became something else, an observer, a survivor. When she turned 14, Catherine's life took another sharp turn. Her uncle, Pope Clement VII, had grand plans for her future, not as a nun, but as a queen. In 1533, she was married to Prince Henry of Orleans, the son of the King of France. The wedding was magnificent, attended by royalty, artists, and foreign dignitaries. Gold, silk, laughter, and yet in the middle of all that splendor, Catherine stood invisible. Because while the kingdom toasted their new princess, Henry's eyes were on another woman, Diane de Poitiers. Diane was twice Catherine's age, graceful, intelligent, and utterly captivating. Henry adored her, and for the rest of his life she would be his true queen. Catherine, meanwhile, was treated like an outsider. The French nobles whispered that she was lowborn, that the Medici blood was tainted with merchants and money, not nobility. They called her the Italian banker's daughter. She smiled, bowed, and said nothing. But behind her calm eyes, Catherine was learning. At court, words were weapons, and she was quietly sharpening hers. She watched who spoke, who hesitated, who lied. She remembered which men mocked her accent, which women turned away. She learned to play the long game, and in France, that game was always about one thing: power. For nearly 20 years, Catherine's life was one of humiliation. Her husband ruled with Diane de Poitiers at his side, a woman who not only shared his bed but his throne. Diane advised on politics, managed royal finances, and even controlled who could approach the king. Catherine had no children for the first 10 years, a failure that nearly had her sent back to Italy. But then, miraculously, she began to bear sons. One by one, her children were born, the future kings of France. And suddenly, she was useful again. Still, Diane remained the king's obsession, and every insult Catherine endured became a scar and a lesson. She turned her pain into study. While the court celebrated banquets, Catherine met with philosophers, astrologers, and scientists. She learned how power flowed, how alliances were built, and how quickly loyalty could be bought or broken. People began to whisper that she practiced dark arts, that she kept potions and spells, that her Italian perfumers made more than fragrances. They made poison, but Catherine didn't need magic to survive. She only needed time. And when Henry died in a freak accident during a jousting tournament, that time arrived. With one broken lance, Diane's reign ended and Catherine's began. When the king's body was carried from the tournament field, the sound of hooves faded, and a silence fell over France's Henry II was dead. And in the shadows of the palace, a woman who'd waited her whole life for a moment like this finally took her seat. Diane de Poitiers was banished within days. Jewels, her estates, stripped away. Catherine made sure the woman who had humiliated her for decades would never again set foot near the throne. But the crown she inherited was no prize. France was bleeding, divided by religion, famine, and betrayal. The court called her the Italian queen. The church called her a heretic, and her enemies whispered that she'd killed her husband with poison. Maybe she didn't correct them because, for the first time, fear worked in her favor. Under Catherine's rule, rumors became weapons. At first, they were whispers. A noble collapses after a feast. A rival duchess dies after drinking wine served by one of Catherine's maids. An ambassador's skin turns grey after visiting her private cabinet. The one rumored to hold flasks of deadly perfume and silver vials labeled with astrological signs. The word poison clung to her like perfume. They called her the Black Queen, the widow in black who could smile and kill in the same breath. But Catherine knew something her enemies didn't. Fear is more powerful than any potion. Whether she actually used poison or not, no one could ever prove it, and that uncertainty became her armor. Behind closed doors, Catherine studied alchemy, the secret science of transformation. She invited astrologers to court, built her own observatory, and even consulted Nostradamus, the mysterious prophet whose visions terrified Europe. The nobles called her mad, but Catherine wasn't chasing superstition. She was mastering control. If she couldn't rule her husband in life, she would rule his legacy in death. And to do that, she needed to keep the kingdom from tearing itself apart. It began with a wedding, a royal union meant to heal a divided nation. In August 1572, the capital of France, Paris, glittered in celebration. The Protestant Prince Henry of Navarre was marrying Marguerite de Valois, Catherine's daughter. For a brief moment, it looked like peace had finally come. But beneath the banners and bells, hatred simmered. Catholics despised the Protestants, known as the Huguenots, who filled the city for the wedding. Old feuds, old wounds, old vengeance. Then came the night of August 23rd. A bell rang out from the church of Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois, and chaos began. Paris woke to screams, windows shattered, doors broke, noblemen dragged from their beds and slaughtered in the streets. The bloodshed would last for days, spreading beyond Paris, across all of France. By the end, historians estimate 10,000 people were dead. They called it the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. And once again, all eyes turned to one woman, Catherine de Medici. Some claimed she'd planned it, signing secret orders to wipe out her enemies in one decisive stroke. Others swore she was trapped, forced to choose between her son's throne and her country's destruction. But in the aftermath, Catherine's reputation was sealed. The Italian queen had become the Queen of Blood. Her name became synonymous with treachery. Pamphlets spread across Europe, Drawings of Catherine stirring poison into goblets, her children standing in pools of blood. But the truth was far murkier. The massacre may have been her doing, or her failure to stop it. Either way, the power she'd fought so long to control now carried a cost she could never wash away. Pause, faint sound of wind and distant church bells. The Black Queen's crown had become her curse. After the massacre, Catherine's rule hardened. She became regent, not for one king, but for 3 of her sons in succession, each weak, sickly, and surrounded by ambitious men who wanted to control them. But Catherine had survived too much to be manipulated. When conspiracies rose, she crushed them quietly. When enemies plotted in secret, she listened and struck before they could breathe a word. She sent coded letters, written in invisible ink. She built a spy network across Europe. And every rumor of poison only made her more untouchable. One ambassador wrote, "To defy the Queen Mother is to dine with death itself." Catherine's court was a place of beauty and terror. Grand masquerades where guests wore jeweled masks and danced under chandeliers, while guards patrolled outside with loaded crossbows. Her rule became a theater of shadows, and every actor knew the price of failure. Yet even in her ruthlessness, there was purpose. Catherine believed she was protecting France, protecting her sons. And in her own words, she once said, "If I must do evil to prevent greater evil, what choice do I have?" Catherine de Medici died in 1589. By then, she had outlived her husband, her enemies, and most of her children. When her body was carried through the streets, few came to mourn, but everyone came to watch. Even in death, people feared her. Whispers followed the coffin. She cursed the kings. She poisoned the future. She still watches through the stars. But history is more complicated than legends. Catherine didn't destroy France. She kept it from burning. She didn't create monsters. She outwitted them. She ruled in a world where women were supposed to obey, and instead, she commanded nations. Centuries later, her legacy still divides historians. Was she the villain who murdered her way through the throne? Or the survivor who used fear as her only defense? Maybe she was both. In a world built on betrayal, maybe Catherine de Medici wasn't a monster at all, just a mirror reflecting the darkness of her time. History hides its darkest secrets in plain sight. If you love stories like this, hit subscribe and join Everyday Crime 247, where every mystery is real and every crime has a story.